a little technical difficulty. And I have had no way to remedy it. Nice to see you coming back, though. Hey, what was the last thing you heard me talking about? I'm hoping it was about the hurricane. I'm assuming. So, apparently, I saw when I got home this morning, Xfinity trucks in my neighborhood. And all I can assume, because I'm sitting there chatting away, talking away, and I'm like, well, why isn't the chat not working? And then it said it was disconnected from the chat. And apparently, look down, I'm like, oh, my internet is out. And I'm assuming has something to do with the Xfinity trucks in the neighborhood, because I get my internet through Xfinity. And so there you go. Yes, the video of the Karen bitching about DeSantis. Okay, we were still talking about that. Well, anyway, long story short, bitching about DeSantis. Well, here's, I'm going to get this article in Breitbart. Well, here's what we'll do. I'm just going to go ahead and go, and people can pop back in as they will, because I wanted to talk about DeSantis and what he's doing, because I think he's been way ahead of the game. He pre-declared a disaster area. He did a lot of things. So is this going to work? Yes, it is. Here it is. So Ron DeSantis, 51 Florida counties under state of emergency ahead of Hurricane Milton. Not after the fact, but he's ahead of it. He said, we don't have time for bureaucracy and red tape. Maybe that's why he's not taking calls from the White House. What a waste of time right now. He's preparing his state for a second disaster. 51 Florida counties are under a state of emergency ahead of the Hurricane Milton, which is now a major Category 5 storm barreling down on the west coast of the state. It becomes a hurricane very quickly, Governor Ron DeSantis said during a morning update at State of Emergency Operations Center. And so not only is it a hurricane, it is already a major hurricane, and it's now a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 150 miles per hour. It is expected to make landfall on the west coast of Florida sometime between Wednesday evening and perhaps very early Thursday morning. DeSantis said during a morning update, noting that this storm has moved slower than the initial projections. If that continues, it's going to push back when landfall will happen. Of course, you can see impacts prior to the eye while making landfall. We have made a pre-landfall declaration request to FEMA for support, and we anticipate a positive approval on that, he said, noting that 51 counties in the Sunshine State are under a state of emergency. Those include all these counties listed. I'm not going to read them. DeSantis added that the executive order he signed over the weekend also orders all disaster debris management sites and landfills to be open 24/7 in the lead up to Hurricane Milton. We had a lot of debris left from Hurricane Helene off Florida to the Gulf Coast. That creates a huge hazard if you have a major hurricane hit in that area this week. So we've marshaled the state assets to be able to help with that mission, and we're going to continue to do that until no longer safe to do so. So he's ahead of this. I don't know what that lady's bitching about. Oh, he won't take a call from the White House or Kamala Harris. What the fuck are the White House and Kamala Harris going to do? He's talking to FEMA and his emergency management operations there in Florida. Who cares if he talks to Kamala Harris? Fuck Kamala Harris. Well, no, don't do that. Anyway, and this video is going to get a red flag. That came to fruition on Sunday as officials ripped the gates open to a landfill site that was closed as people continued in their efforts to clean up ahead of Milton. Last night, DeSantis' administration forcibly ripped open the gates of the Pinellas County landfill site because it was closed ahead of the hurricane. One of the gates was locked. There was no one manning it, and so we had this massive line of cars waiting to drop off debris, which is a good thing. And so Florida Highway Patrol basically took matters into their own hands, fastened some rope to a couple of pickup trucks to the gate and busted the gate open, DeSantis said. We don't have time for bureaucracy and red tape, he added. We have to get the job done. Hurricane Milton is now intensified into a Category 5 storm. And so that's what they're dealing with. So look, DeSantis is like, no, we got to do some shit now. motherfuckers. And now the Tampa mayor issues a dire warning. The mayor of Tampa, a city that is in the crosshairs of Hurricane Milton, issued a grave warning to Florida residents who don't heed calls to evacuate ahead of the monster storm. He says, quote, or she says, I'm sorry, that's a she. If you choose to stay, you are going to die, Mayor Jane Castor bluntly said on This Is CNN. So here's, is that video? No, that's not video. That's just is it? No, it's just a picture. If you choose to stay, you are going to die, Mayor Jane Castor bluntly said on CNN while talking about the dangers of Milton, a literal catastrophic Category 5 hurricane that's barreling toward the Sunshine State. The powerful storm could hit Florida as early as Wednesday and may be more destructive than deadly Hurricane Helene, which ripped through parts of the Sunshine State last week. Castor emphasized that attempting to ride out the storm could prove fatal. The time to flee is now, she urged residents in evacuation zones. She says, I can tell you right now, they might have done that in others. There's never been one like this, Castor said on CNN. And Helene was a wake-up call. This is literally catastrophic. And I can say without dramatization whatsoever, if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you are going to die. Castor has been in office since 2019, noted some of the forecasts predict a tidal surge of up to 10 to 12 feet. Helene's tidal surge was 6 feet. And that was literally devastating to so many in our coastal areas, she said, as of Helene's disastrous path. So the mayor ain't messing around either. It seems like elected officials in Florida are taking this stuff seriously. And I don't know what that lady was bitching about. Hello, Reaction Puerto Rico. Now, obviously, the relief efforts in the news, the New York Post, Hurricane Helene reveals a rudderless White House and an inept Harris's flaws. The failure of the Biden-Harris administration to take charge of urgently needed rescue and recovery efforts after Hurricane Helene underscores the key question: who is really running the White House? Now, I think I'm not really sure if the president of the United States, in any case, again, they're getting the George W. Bush treatment because things seem not to be going well. And I don't know what Joe Biden in particular could be doing right now, because his addled brain probably doesn't realize there was a hurricane. But I don't know what they're supposed to do. Ron DeSantis, as the governor, obviously taking leadership seriously and is getting people moving where they need to be moving and whatnot. But anyway, President Biden and Vice President Harris's cavalier indifference to the Americans fighting to survive in the disaster zone has left us, both longtime Democrats, speechless. So this is by Douglas Schoen and Andrew Stein. They're Democrats who are criticizing them. The fact that they're not seem to be prioritizing that in their speech and rhetoric, and the fact that Biden's about to take a trip to Africa or something, and maybe it optically is not good. Substantively, politically, and personally, both Biden and Harris had ample reason to step up in the aftermath of the storm's horrific destruction. Yet their administration has repeatedly failed Helene's victims, and by extension, the American people as a whole. The storm made landfall September 26th in Florida and raged over inland parts of Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, killing a confirmed 232 people, with hundreds still missing. No, thousands, especially in Appalachia. In North Carolina, they're saying that there's thousands of people missing. And 232 people, they're already saying that there's thousands of bodies that they have not recovered. But the administration's slow response in mobilizing federal resources hampered recovery efforts, while Biden and Harris' late and perfunctory visits to the disaster area to show support have made them appear woefully insensitive. Biden, who was vacationing in Delaware when the storm hit, glibly told reporters he had commanded the federal response by phone for at least 2 hours, a whole 2 hours, hardly sufficient for an event this devastating. Again, though, you would think that your The people who do this for a living, the administrators and FEMA and whatnot, would be the ones who would be in charge of it. And what can Biden do? Okay, chat. Here's what I want you to answer for me, because I'm trying to figure it out. What could Biden do other than use his bully pulpit and show actual concern? Which is, that's a problem too, because it doesn't seem that way. I mean, I don't see him getting out of this. Obama would be out there, Trump would be out there, and Bush was out there. They just didn't like what they wanted to criticize George Bush because it was black people, right? But here we go. Even more alarmingly, Harris, who was hoping to be our next president, was initially content with a brief FEMA photo op in the storm's aftermath. Only when it became a media talking point nearly a week later did the Veep finally travel to a hard-hit part of the swing state, Georgia, an obviously political stop just weeks before Election Day. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp was one of many local officials who called out the administration for delaying much-needed federal aid. Only 11 counties out of the 90 likely to need aid were initially made eligible for federal relief funds, Kemp complained, tying local hands and undoubtedly worsening Helene's impact in the Peach State. It took 6 days for the White House to activate a paltry 1,000 military members to help deliver assistance, even though 3 American premier military divisions with critical search and rescue experience are based just within a few hours of the hardest hit areas in the Carolinas and Georgia. Compare that to, okay, now let's do a comparison. Compare and contrast. Compare that to President George W. Bush, who ordered nearly 10,000 troops to the Hurricane Katrina disaster zone in 2005. And remember how they treated George Bush about Katrina. If Biden and Harris had wished to actually help Americans and not just pose for pictures, they should have immediately activated military assets for rescue efforts. True. And mobilized the Army Corps of Engineers. They hadn't done that to clear and stabilize roads and bridges. Wow, I didn't know that wasn't happening. They could have ordered FEMA to quickly expand the list of impacted counties to get aid flowing appropriately. And they should certainly have done a better job managing FEMA funding. According to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, the agency is nearly broke after spending more than $600 million caring for illegal migrants nationwide. The bumbling White House response is incomprehensible for any administration, but particularly so close to a presidential election. Democrats always worried about elections. Harris was already struggling to respond to voters' questions over her agenda, her priorities, and her managerial abilities. Her failure to so much as show up when Americans face such a crisis has literally taken our breath away. Her apparent indifference underscores voters' suspicions that Harris is not on top of our country's domestic concerns and may well damage her chances in these battleground states. Bush was excoriated for appearing heartless toward the people of New Orleans after his 2005 flyby of the Hurricane Katrina disaster zone. Harris is running the very real risk of being seen in the same light. Risk? She's already seen in the same light. Given that well-known history, the level of political mismanagement on the part of this administration and Harris's campaign is shocking. It reinforces the belief that Biden-Harris administration as a whole is both inept and insensitive. Well, they got that right. Then they just go into more about political stuff. But yeah, so that's not good. And then, if you look at a couple other headlines here, reports say FEMA is blocking real private life-saving help in Helene storm zones. That's an article about how they're not letting people who want to help in several different ways. We talked about some of those. And then in the Federalist, there's an article here. As North Carolina flood victims begged for help, Mayorkas went boutique shopping in Georgetown, according to a report. He went on a luxury shopping spree in Georgetown this weekend as residents across southern Appalachia continue to beg for emergency supplies. Yeah, that's the Federalist. That's I don't, in a way I care about that, but I don't. Who knows? Now, also interesting, and this is just Libs of TikTok pointed this out. Apparently, now this is interesting because I'm trying to figure out these numbers. Okay, FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund's monthly report reveals that $4 billion, billion with a B, was spent on COVID-19 aid. In September of 2024, the most of any month since October 2023. I have questions. Why is FEMA spending $4 billion on COVID aid? So I opened this up. Where's the full screen? There we go. I opened this up and I'm looking at this chart. So it's showing what things are spent on. There's earthquakes, Puerto Rican earthquakes. Okay, and this is in millions of dollars. So they're still spending on the Puerto Rican earthquakes from 2024, I think. No, that's, yeah. And roughly 19 million, maybe, whatever. COVID here is September of 2024, $3.943 billion spent on emergency COVID aid. What is that? And it's like 1.5 billion, 1.6 billion, 1.6 billion, 2.2 billion, 1.9 billion. These are month to month. 2.6 billion, 2.1 billion, 1.7 billion. And there's nothing else that even comes close to that. California wildfires are still spending a few million. Hurricane Laura, 90 million, blah, blah, blah. These are all millions. Again, these are events that have happened, but they're still spending money. All of these things. Now, what's the one that was most recent? The Hawaiian wildfires. So you see this. So in October 23, 1.5 billion COVID-19 relief, 448 million Hawaii. November, 1.6 billion COVID, 107 million Hawaii. December 2023, 1.6 billion COVID, 39 million Hawaii. 2.2 billion, 22 million. 19 billion, 1.9 billion, 15 million. What? So, AD, or no, oh no, reaction on Puerto Rico, or some noble nation says, money laundering. Where are these COVID billions of dollars going? So the total since October 2023, $26 billion on COVID relief. Hawaii wildfires, $867 million. Oh, that was estimated. The actual number is 19 billion and Hawaii 1.9 billion. So 10 times much on COVID emergency. Really, for what? This is in 2024? I can't figure it out. But they did almost $5 billion in September, up from, and there's 3.2 there. They're way, now they're below their budget total, but why? Where's this $4.8 billion going to COVID relief? Hi, Jeffrey Russell, what's up? So that's fascinating. All right, I'm going to skip the other trending things. I want to talk about the topic of the day, Kamala's tour. But in fact, some of this is related to it. Oh, by the way, there's a new book out that's selling in Walmart. It is, someone wrote a book called The Achievements of Kamala Harris. The achievement, there it is. There's a new book, The Achievement of Kamala Harris by Jason Dudash. Here, I think they give you a sample page in here. Let's see. The achievements of Kamala Harris. Oh, it's completely blank. Apparently, it's been selling well at Walmart too. People have been buying that book. It's been selling like hotcakes. Anyway, we'll skip that. So Kamala Harris is going on this tour, right? She's finally doing a bunch of interviews, and but mostly friendly venues, right? Well, so like, for example, now someone here made the point, there's never been more clear that we are in a battle for the soul of our nation. Do we stand tradition? Wait, well, she was on this Call Her Daddy, the Call Her Daddy podcast that we watched yesterday. And then she's also doing Howard Stern, Stephen Colbert, who held a fundraiser for Kamala Harris. And then she was on 60 Minutes. And I guess the 60 Minutes interview was a little bit less than, well, if you're a Democrat, it'd be just straight up disappointing. But apparently I didn't know the Call Her Daddy podcast was like a sex podcast. It's just amazing. So this is a young lady who's talking about that.
Imagine you and your family are stranded in a devastating flood. You have no food, no water. Your house is gone. You're losing loved ones. You're trying to get aid for you and your family, but the budget is dried up because the government has been prioritizing illegals. And at the same time this is happening, the Vice President of the United States is talking about reproductive rights on a sex podcast. How would that make you feel? Well, unfortunately for you, you don't have to imagine it because it's real. While Americans are suffering from hurricane aftermath, Kamala's bantering on a podcast about how there are no laws that exist that control a man's body. The draft? Hello? Do I really have to educate a political candidate on what selective service is? I mean, technically, every law we have is about controlling our bodies and dictating what we can't use our bodies to do. Can't drink and drive, can't do drugs. Abortion is no different, and we are giving airtime to an issue that has already been settled and is distracting us from real issues like illegal immigration, crime, the economy, foreign policy. This woman had the opportunity to spearhead a conversation about the economy on Dave Ramsey's podcast, and instead she's talking about tampons on Call Her Daddy. She is the epitome of disgrace, a walking, breathing emetic, and at this point she should be nowhere near the White House.
Wow, I thought women were just gonna roll over and vote for Harris, but maybe not everybody. So Trump did interviews with Alden Ross, Dr. Phil, Dave Ramsey, Theo Vaughn, Sean Ryan, Lex Friedman. They forgot the Association of Black Journalists. He's been in some, and he's done more other ones. By the way, left Kamala Harris recording an interview on the sex podcast Call Her Daddy, right? Hurricane victims pleading with their government to help after losing their loved ones, their homes, their livelihoods. That tells you all you need to know about Kamala's priorities. So, what says Kamala Harris's appearance on Call Her Daddy turns into a massive flop as the YouTube segment barely received 100,000 views in the first 16 hours with mostly negative reactions. As at the time of this post, the segment on YouTube has 4,900 likes and 11,000 dislikes, meaning it has a 31% favorability rating. The comments were almost entirely negative. Not one good comment. This is nuts. She really tried to Aiden Ross like Trump and got this. How long before these comments get disabled? People in my neighboring state, North Carolina, do not have power, water, roads, and our VP is talking about this. So sad. My heart is broken for the country. 97,000 views in 14 hours. Trump would get millions. Well, the other part, too, is Kamala Harris' approval rating falls to 28%, a historic low for any modern vice president. Now, that's November 2021. That doesn't mean anything. But she is doing other interviews, and people are lamenting the fact that Donald Trump has canceled a 60 Minutes interview. Now, what Donald Trump has said that one of the reasons he backed out of the interview was that he wanted them to apologize for the Leslie Stahl saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation or whatever. And here's a quick point, because Well, I'll show you this first. Greg Price puts up 60 Minutes straight up claimed tonight that Leslie Stahl didn't dismiss the Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation in 2020. The only problem is they had video of this. They should have known. Notice how they don't say we were wrong. The laptop was real. Instead, they mock Trump for demanding an apology for lying. So here's how they opened 60 Minutes. The Kamala Harris Trump interview on 60 Minutes. They made the Kamala Harris beginning of the interview about Trump. Here it is.
Later,
hang on.
Later, Trump said he needed an apology for his interview in 2020. Trump claims correspondent Leslie Stahl said in that interview that Hunter Biden's controversial laptop came from Russia. She never said that.
Okay. Well, let's see what she did say then.
The biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about...
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me, they found the laptop. Leslie.
It can't be verified.
Can't be verified.
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Because
even the family hasn't... The family on the laptop, he's gone into hiding. For 5 days, he's gone into hiding.
He's preparing for your debate.
Oh, the biggest scandal.
So she said that it can't be verified. Okay, interesting. Wait, the voiceover sounds AI? No, that's the recording from one of Trump's person recorded it while they were there so they could have that what actually was said and how the feed was. So if they edit it, they can tell you how they edited it. So anyway, yeah, Leslie Stahl did deny it. She did deny it. She denied that they couldn't verify it. Yeah, they could. So anyway, so as I'm gonna move on here though. So where's the one? Oh, here it's the same list. So a bunch of the people on the left are saying, okay, this is how they opened this interview. Let me find one that's. I want to find a fuller one. Yeah, I want to do the full one here. So in their introduction to the interview with Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes, this is how they opened.
A week ago, Trump backed out. The campaign...
Now, by the way, they do all start at Trump backed out, which means I want to see the rest of it, but here's what they keep posting.
Offered shifting explanations. First, it complained that we would fact-check the interview. We fact-check every story.
No, you don't.
Later.
You do not. But you got better on this particular interview with Harris.
Trump said he needed an apology for his interview in 2020. Trump claims correspondent Leslie Stahl said in that interview that Hunter Biden's controversial laptop came from Russia. She never said that.
But now it's interesting how they parse words because, she said that they couldn't verify it. They couldn't verify it. By the time they did the interview, I believe they had verified that it was actually Hunter Biden's laptop. The FBI even said it was.
Said his opponent doesn't do interviews because she can't handle them.
And she hadn't up till now. She finally does one. But why are they talking about Donald Trump to introduce Kamala Harris's interview? Because they're giving a handshake to the Democratic Party on this.
He had previously declined another debate with Harris, so tonight may have been the largest audience for the candidates between now and Election Day. Our questions addressed the economy, immigration, reproductive rights, and the wars in the Middle East and Europe. Both campaigns understood this special would go ahead if either candidate backed out.
Oh, so they were supposed to have both of them.
And so with that, here's Bill Whitaker.
All right, so there you go. So they say this is devastating for Trump. I don't think it is because her interview did not go that well. Let's get into her interview. And we'll just do this one article and then I got to get out of here. But here it is. Artless Dodger, Harris flustered with substance-free 60 Minutes interview. This is how the Washington Free Beacon is discussing it. Now, I think this is the entire interview.
Kamala Harris.
Oh, I think this is, wow, they whittled it down to 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? Or is this the preview of the interview? No, they whittled it down to 5 minutes. Vice President Kamala Harris went on 60 Minutes in an attempt to answer some of the toughest questions she's faced, a low bar since taking over the Democratic nomination from 81-year-old Joe Biden, who is technically still the president. She was meandering and evasive throughout the interview, with Bill Whitaker of CBS News, who had to politely repeat the question on several occasions. There's no telling how confounding Harris's answers must have been in real time. The network's producers saw fit to liberally and sloppily edit the conversation. They included a considerable amount of overdubbed editorializing from Whitaker, as if he were translating Harris's remarks into basic English. They made clear at the outset that Harris's opponent, Donald Trump, declined to participate. Harris says she'll press Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, but details are yet to be defined, Whitaker said in a post-production remarks, as Harris continued to ramble on screen and at a low volume. He was attempting to translate Harris's answer to his question about rampant inflation during the Biden-Harris administration. We now have an economy that is thriving by all macroeconomic measures, Harris bragged before struggling to articulate a plan that would help normal Americans who don't follow macroeconomic trends. Prices are still too high, and I know that, and we need to deal with it, which is why part of my plan, you mentioned groceries, part of my plan is what we must do to bring down the price of groceries. I can hear it in my head. That answer it's like, well, let me read that sentence again. So listen to this. Tell me what the plan is. Prices are still too high, and I know that. We need to deal with it, which is why part of my plan, you mentioned groceries, part of my plan is what we must do to bring down the price of groceries. Got it? Did you get it? Huh? At one point, Whitaker interrupted Harris's talking points about how small businesses are part of the backbone of the American economy to insist she explain how she would pay for all her spending proposals. She said it could all be paid for by raising taxes on rich people and rejected Whitaker's suggestion that Congress was unlikely to approve new tax hikes. You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of this is her answer. You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. The vice president alleged, I'm a devout public servant. You know that, but I am also a capitalist. Well, what the fuck does that? What? How are you going to get Congress to pass the tax increases? Harris is also an alleged gun owner. And Glock is trending because she had said in this interview, I have a Glock and I've had it for some time, she told Whitaker. And I mean, look, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go. Of course, she was fired. It was of course she has fired it. The VP cackled at a shooting range. Whitaker asked Harris a question many so-called journalists have had the opportunity to ask, but for some reason have not. How does she explain her numerous reversals on the radical left-wing policy positions she espoused as a candidate in 2019? What was her message to critics who argued that people don't truly know where she stands? Her answer failed to include an explanation or message beyond a saccharine appeal to common senses. I have been traveling the country and I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground, Harris said before the producers cut to a different clip, presumably out of mercy. I believe in building a consensus. We are a diverse people geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds, and what the American people do want is that we understand. We have leaders who can build consensus where we can figure out compromise and understand it is not a bad thing as long as you don't compromise your values to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach. Alas, Whitaker declined to intervene or ask Harris what the hell she was talking about. I believe in my soul and heart the American people are ready to turn the page, said Harris, who has served as vice president since January 2021. Whitaker pointed out this while attempting to get Harris to explain why illegal immigration surged on her watch. Solutions are at hand, she alleged. The politics that we've been proposing have been about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem, okay? Yeah, except you exacerbated the problem. And now it's funny because Whitaker at one point said, the border crossings quadrupled under your watch. And she said, well, we brought them down by half, which means that they're still way higher than they were at the beginning of your term. It was just, I don't know. There's a lot of clips of the interview. And it leads to articles like this. Kamala Harris still can't say how she'll pay for her $1 trillion economic plan. Right. And it goes back to the 60 Minutes interview. Now, I am running out of time, so I do have a bunch of articles in the links today. One on how reports say FEMA is blocking real private life-saving help in Helene storm zones. That's on MRC TV. That should be farther down here. I should move that. By the way, after Democratic panic, Harris lines up a bunch of softball interviews, which is what we were talking about. So since launching her campaign, Vice President has continually avoided national press and hard-hitting interviews as she takes a tour through non-traditional media this week. Democrats, including some of the Vice President's own staffers expressed concern to Politico that Harris's avoidant media strategy and light campaign schedule could backfire in the final weeks of the campaign. Yeah, she's doing the Hillary thing. Since that panic, Harris appeared on Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy, which is also expected to appear on 60 Minutes, which she did. She's going to be on The View. She's going to be on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And she's going to be on Howard Stern. Now, who in those three? Let's just go to those three. The choices are, I'm going to put in the chat. The View. Okay, maybe I'll pull a poll. Let's do a poll. Let's see, poll. Here we go. Which will be the hardest hitting interview? The View, Late Show with Colbert, or Howard Stern. Oops, there we go. Now, if this were the old days of Howard Stern, like when he pretty much was constantly doing sex jokes, I would think that would be the toughest interview because he would be talking about Willie Brown's Willie. But I guarantee he will not bring up Willie Brown's Willie in an interview. Other articles in the links today. Kamala goes on a sex podcast. That's the Call Her. I didn't know Call Her Daddy was a sex podcast. Why are you going on a sex podcast? You need to stay away from venues like that if you have any self-awareness whatsoever, and some of the criticisms that people have of you, particularly the beginning of your political and legal career. Enhanced by Willie's Willie. But no, you went on a sex podcast. What are you thinking, woman? God. Also, the link. Apparently, this Democratic strategist just on CNN decided to call Donald Trump Hitler. Oh, wow. No one's ever done that before. In National Pulse. By the way, Melania Trump got debanked and they banned her from an email. Her email provider, former First Lady Melania Trump, was cut off by a bank and an email service provider upon leaving the White House. Mrs. Trump believed these actions were politically motivated. Oh, you think? Providing an example of the rising trend of debanking, where individuals and organizations are denied essential services due to their political affiliations or opinions. The bank suddenly informed me they will not be able to do business with me anymore, and a very prominent email distribution service provider just rapidly terminated my agreement, the former First Lady confirmed during an interview. That's fucked up. What did she do to you, dickheads? Anyway, let's see here. Also in the articles, FEMA is blocking. Okay, that's the one I just showed you. Also, apparently there's a Democratic governor. What the hell's going on here? Fix that. There we go. Why is this not? There we go. Apparently, Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro allegedly used taxpayer money to conduct a training event for Democrat-friendly social media influencers. The Democracy Summer Camp held on July 25th was designed to educate participants on encouraging their likely liberal audiences to vote and recognizing so-called misinformation online. The state of Pennsylvania reportedly funded this day-long event, inviting 43 influencers. None of those invited to appear have had Republican sympathies, with approximately 70% having openly liberal social media profiles. So great use of government money there, Josh. You could have been the vice president, but, she chose Tim Walz, so whatever. And apparently, Karine Jean-Pierre, the very French-sounding press secretary for the president of the United States, got promoted. Following up, White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre promoted top aides to President Joe Biden, who promoted press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre to a senior advisor to the president Monday. She got promoted senior advisor to the president. She's going to be a senior advisor to the president. The promotion suggests some in the White House are eager to replace Karine Jean-Pierre as press secretary. Oh, okay, I get it. That would be a brilliant move. Get her out of the press secretary, because she sucks as press secretary. You could call her a senior advisor and then just not listen to her. But as press secretary, she's out front every day. So maybe someone in the White House was smart, eager to replace Karine Jean-Pierre as press secretary. Okay, that's a brilliant move. I mean, who cares if she's a senior advisor? Again, don't have to fucking listen to her. That's great. And then the last article, apparently some boomer Democrats reject free speech. So we know John Kerry and Hillary Clinton and all these fuckers hate free speech. That's illegal insurrection. All right, guys, that's it for today. I got to go. But here, I'm going to drop these links in the chat if my computer works. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. There it goes. Oh, my God. It's actually working today. That's fan-fucking-tastic. So, guys, I'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday. Hump day tomorrow. And we'll do more of this stuff, and maybe we'll think of something fun to do. Maybe we'll find some videos to watch, and we'll critique what's happening in the videos and talk about those and make fun of people or something. I don't know. What else do? We talk about what's going on in the world. So we'll obviously continue to do that. By the way, the poll looks like, y'all think that The View will be the hardest hitting interview? There is at least one person on The View that might ask her a tough question, but I don't know. I'm not buying it. Anyway, here's today's links. And thanks, everybody. I really do got to go. My name is P-Dog Knight. And I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Sorry for the abrupt ending. Bye. Hi, Renee Mayette. Hey, this is P-Dog Knight, and thanks for watching today on the P-Dog Knight channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all the supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through Streamlabs, YouTube, Venmo, and Cash App, which are all linked in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm P-Dog Knight, and I'm out of here.